The first 100 days of the Trump administration have been breathtaking, a lot like the early days of Ron DeSantis in Florida. And what he's doing in Florida is trying to get the state to do everything they can to make sure that Trump's policies are going through, especially on illegals. There is a House with these unbelievable RINOs that in a special session, they didn't want to come back because they said it's not an emergency. What are you talking about? Ron DeSantis called for a special session because he said the president was just put in office. I want all of the tools on the table to help him solve this problem. The RINOs said no, and then they started to change everything that he wanted and then have the balls to name it the Trump Act. Really? The Trump Act? And Ron DeSantis, governor, is with us now to tell us a little bit about the Trump Act. Welcome to the program, Governor. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, a week ago today, we were preparing for a historic snowstorm, and our state record had been 4 inches. We actually hit last week 10 inches of snow in northwest Florida and Milton. You saw the beaches covered in snow. So it's kind of an interesting period for Florida. Where's the global warming when you need it, right?
Okay, so tell me about, because what I've seen, what's happening with Wilton Simpson is an abomination. Tell me Tell me who you're fighting and what you're fighting against and for.
Well, you hit it on the head. They didn't want to do anything on illegal immigration. And after the election, I said, this is our chance. This is the number one issue the president ran on, and we need to get it right. And so there's no way President Trump can fulfill his mandate if the state and local governments and law enforcement are not actively supporting his deportation efforts. I mean, think about it. He's come out of the gate strong, but they've done about probably 700, 800 arrests on average a day. Let's just say 1,000. Well, extrapolate that out, 365,000 a year times 4. Biden let in 10 million illegals on his own. Now, I do think the Trump administration will ramp up. I think they'll get better numbers as time goes on. But if you just had every red state, say all police departments, all sheriff's departments, all state agent, law enforcement agencies have to participate maximally in the programs that the Trump administration is offering for immigration enforcement, you would increase those numbers dramatically. And that is what we have to do. We've got to be ready to go. We've got to work hand in glove. Now, what you'll have in California and in Chicago, they're going to be trying to sabotage Trump's agenda. They're going to be sanctuary jurisdictions. Now, we don't allow that in Florida, but I think most states who are not sanctuary, they're just going to say, hey, it's the federal government's responsibility. Yeah, we won't sabotage it, but we're not going to be in that fight. Right. I don't think that's adequate. This is a historic moment for this country. We've been talking about this issue for decades. Yes, Trump is absolutely right by going after the cartels and designating them foreign terrorist organizations. Obviously, we need to build the wall and fortify the border. But you have this massive problem of interior enforcement. And so that's what we're proposing, as well as other things that are important. Legislature didn't want to do it. I called the special session against their wishes. They said it was premature, that it could wait. But, you know, they got blowback from their constituents. So they thought if they came in, gutted with the enforcement of doing what we need to do, and just name it the Trump Act, that somehow they would be able to get away with that. Obama named Obamacare the Affordable Care Act. Obviously, it wasn't affordable. Biden named his spending boondoggle the Inflation Reduction Act. Obviously, that didn't work out. So they're playing this game where if they put Trump's name on a weak bill, that somehow people will think it's going to be good. And it's totally inadequate. But here's the thing, Glenn. Before I became governor, Florida was very weak on illegal immigration. And part of it was they thought because Hispanic population here, you had to be. I proved that wrong because I was the strongest governor and I had a record Hispanic vote in 2022. So that was wrong. But then you do have this desire for cheap illegal alien labor in some of these industries. And I think that's what these guys are trying to preserve. I don't think they want to see immigration enforcement the way you would need to fulfill President Trump's mandate. So they made it sound like initially it was a difference of opinion on timing, but understand what they're proposing, it's a difference of values. The values that we all ran on, that Donald Trump got elected on, that all your listeners subscribe to, those are reflected in the proposals that I did. They are not reflected in what the Florida legislative leaders are doing. And you mentioned the Commissioner of Agriculture. They're actually taking away immigration enforcement authority from the governor and putting it in the Commissioner of Agriculture. That's like the fox guarding the henhouse. They don't want to enforce it. Are you kidding me?
Crazy.
And even stripping some of the things I have now, like E-Verify, they want to put that over there. So it's a really, really bad product. And here's the thing. I think some of them are caught up in, we don't want the governor to get the win. We're sick of him always doing all this stuff. I don't need pride of ownership. They can take 100% of the credit. I just want to get the job done. And if we're not doing what needs to be done right now to get ready for this, then, there'll be some successes. Don't get me wrong, but we're not going to be able to actually deliver on the mandate that the voters gave us. And here, just the final point I make, Republicans all run. For 4 years in Florida, they all ran on bashing Biden's border policies, saying we needed to get tough, supporting Donald Trump's agenda in 2024. They all ran on that. Not one Republican ran and said, you know what, we just need to give it all to the Commissioner of Agriculture. State and local shouldn't be required to help the federal government. They wouldn't do any of that. And now they're bragging about they're going to spend money on giving beds for illegals. I don't want to house the illegals. I want to deport the illegals.
It is remarkable to me. I mean, first of all, Wilton Simpson, he wants to be governor. When you're not governor, he's going to run in the next cycle. He's compromised. He is the guy supported giving in-state tuition to illegal aliens. He gave the cutout for E-Verify, so agriculture didn't have to worry about it. Refused to provide law enforcement resources during the original border crisis. This guy is not a helper when it comes to doing the things that Americans have just said they want to be done. Who is also? I mean, I'm just looking up. You've got the Senate president. Ben Albritton, House Speaker Daniel Perez, they seem to be in the same boat as Wilton Simpson. Who needs the pressure?
Well, look, I think that just all the legislators, they just need to hear from their constituents, and they're getting upset saying that somehow like they're getting threatened because some of their constituents are telling them that this is not right, but that they need to be held accountable for their actions. And if what they're doing is consistent with what they told the voters they were doing, they're not going to have any problem, right? But I'll tell you, Glenn, I've been doing this now for 6 years. I've never seen our base react more negatively on an issue than what the legislature is trying to pull right now. It is like 99-1 in terms of opposition. So I think sunlight's the best disinfectant. People just have to make their voice heard, but we shouldn't let this slip through our fingertips. I think some of it is, some inside baseball up there. Wilton Simpson was the Senate president. A lot of the tough immigration policies we did 2 years ago, I wasn't able to get through when he was Senate president because he did block it, and he did support things like driver's licenses for illegals when he was in the Florida Senate. But he really exercises a lot of influence over the Florida Senate. So the fact that he was put into that bill, I don't think that was an accident. I think that was definitely something that they were trying to do. And does it even pass the laugh test?
No.
That no state has been more active in fighting illegal immigration over Biden's term than Florida and me. We've had people at the border. We did the Martha's Vineyard and other transport. We enacted mandatory E-Verify. We've done all these things. And then you want to take all that away and give it to the ag commissioner and create some new crazy bureaucracy
that they don't even have they don't have the infrastructure for in the first place. It would all have to be rebuilt in the ag department. Am I right about that or wrong?
Exactly. And the way the bill's written, we think it's unconstitutional because it actually takes away some of the core executive power that is vested in the governor's office under Florida's constitution. So it's constitutionally suspect. It's also, as a policy matter, it is not going to work. And here's the thing. If their proposals were consistent with what they campaigned on and would actually work, and they had competing. Hey, if it works, it works. Their proposals will not work. I mean, think of even this issue. It needs to be a crime for illegals to register to vote. We've been trying to do this for years. That was in my proposals. They're not including that. So illegals can register in Florida under their proposal, and they're not requiring them to sign an affidavit that they're U.S. citizen, which our Constitution requires, and there's no penalty. Well, guess what, Glenn? If you let them register, by the time they vote, even if you prosecute them after the fact, the vote counts. The time to stop it is when they try to register in the first place, and yet they're not doing anything about that. We have in our proposals a rebuttable presumption that illegals that get brought up on criminal charges are detained and then turned over to ICE. They watered that down so that judges are just going to release these guys back on the street. So it's a lack of seriousness about what it really takes to get this issue right. And I can tell you this, when they proposed their so-called Trump Act, misnamed Trump Act, Democrats in the Florida Senate were high-fiving them. Liberal media in Florida have been singing their praises. The ACLU of Florida tweeted, thank you for what you're doing. I can tell you this, Glenn, when we banned sanctuary cities, Democrats were not high-fiving anyone.
Correct.
When we eliminated DEI a couple years ago, no Democrats were high-fiving anyone. When we eliminated the woke, when we did the stop the gender insanity, when we did all those things that Florida became famous for, no Democrats were high-fiving. No media was singing our praises. The ACLU was not in our corner. So if this is really a tough immigration proposal, then why are these people on the left embracing it?
I have to tell you, Ron, this is the one thing that has stopped me from moving to Florida. I promised my wife that someday we'd live on the water. And so the only option for me really is Florida because it's a free state and it's a great state and you're the governor. But I worry about you when you leave. What are these stupid Republicans going to do? And honestly, if we don't get all of these weasels out and get the people in that actually believe in what we're trying to do, the state's going to go back to the same wishy-washy garbage that makes it a garbage state as it always have. You guys have led the way, and it's the reason why you're leading the United States right now, because you're doing what the people are asking for. These guys who don't get it, man, they should be on notice. I, like you, have never seen the Republican voters as awake as they are right now. They know what they want. They see what's happening in Washington. They see what's happening in Florida. And if you are a voter in Florida, you need to get on the phone because your state's going to go to trash the minute this guy leaves if you don't have people that understand what and believe and will execute what you want to happen. You need to get on the phone right now and call your Florida representative. By the way, we have Sheriff Wayne Ivey on with us, Governor, in just a few minutes. I think he's going to be kind of telling the story about what you're actually looking for, isn't he?
Yeah, look, I mean, people like Wayne, they want to solve the problem, and so they want to participate in these federal programs. Not everyone wants to do that, which is why we have to make it an expectation that all police departments and sheriff's departments want to do it. But just think about, yes, we focus on criminal aliens, and that's important, but I want to get these guys before they commit crimes. I want to make sure our schools aren't overrun with illegals. I want to make sure our healthcare system isn't overrun. I want to make sure that illegals aren't getting into accidents and they don't have insurance, and then you're out of luck. So there's so many ways that this problem impacts our society, and unless we get it right on enforcement right now under Donald Trump's leadership, we're never going to solve this problem. And the quality of life is going to increase dramatically. And look, you talked about Florida, what's going to happen in the future. I can tell you this. I came in, I was bold. They told me that was a mistake because it was a 50-50 state, but we were bold. We delivered results. There was a sharp contrast between us and the left. And we've had more political success in Florida than Republicans have ever had. When you water down, when you do the corporatism, where you're not standing for working people, but you're worried about things like cheap labor, when you do that, you will lose political support. That's the lifeline. I think the reason the Democrats were high-fiving is because they see the leaders in the legislature, they're giving them a lifeline to regain relevance in Florida. They're giving them a pathway where they can return to power in the future. We have beat the left. We weren't trying to high-five them. We've beat them on issue after issue. That's why they've been rendered irrelevant. And the formula is very clear. And even look at the national election. Donald Trump was bold, and he was rewarded.
I've got to run, but it's so great to talk to you. Keep up the good fight. Governor Ron DeSantis.